What if the very act of trying to fix your life, like solve your everyday problems and aggressively claw your way out of anxiety, is the exact thing keeping you trapped?
That is deeply counterintuitive. We're taught that if you feel cornered, you push back,
Right.
right? You exert your will.
Right, exactly. Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today we have a truly remarkable mission. We're exploring an incredibly profound set of poetic verses written by Guru Arjan Devji.
Yes, and these are found in the Sikh scripture. Specifically, they're in the section set to a musical measure called Rag Ramkali on pages 957 and 958.
And we're going to trace this specific psychological and spiritual journey mapped out in these texts. A journey that moves from a state of deep, gnawing inner hunger and, worldly panic, all the way to unshakable spiritual contentment.
It's a massive shift in perspective.
It really is. Okay,
Right.
let's unpack this. Because whether you consider yourself deeply spiritual or you're just, listening right now on your commute, trying to figure out how to stop feeling completely crushed by modern life, these verses offer a very jarring, paradigm-shifting approach.
They really, really do. And the text begins by perfectly capturing that universal physical sensation of stress. It doesn't start in the clouds, it starts right in the body.
With a feeling of profound claustrophobia, yeah. The opening imagery is staggering. The text says, "He has widened the narrow path for me and preserved my integrity along with that of my family."
That phrase, the narrow path, is just so visceral.
It hit a nerve for me because being in real trouble or just being consumed by the sheer volume of daily stress feels exactly like being trapped in a narrowing tunnel.
Yeah, like the walls are physically moving closer together.
Exactly. You can't turn around, the air is getting thin, and you're just waiting to get crushed by the pressure of your own life. What does this text mean by widening the narrow path? Because it says, he has widened the narrow path. It doesn't say, I dug my way out.
Right, and to understand the mechanism here, we have to look at the subsequent line. It says, he himself has arranged and resolved my affairs.
So it's not me doing the arranging.
Exactly. The text is pointing to a fundamental shift in reality. Widening the path isn't about you suddenly gaining the strength to, push the walls apart yourself.
Which is usually what we try to do. We try to carry it all.
We do, but it's the profound realization that you aren't actually the one holding the tunnel up. It is a shift from an egocentric universe to a divine-centric universe.
Where your integrity and your life are actively preserved by a higher power, which, requires an immense amount of surrender.
Absolutely.
But the text doesn't frame the surrender as submitting to, like, a cold, distant dictator in the sky. It gets incredibly intimate.
It uses very grounded, almost vulnerable imagery.
Yeah, it states, God is my mother and father. He hugs me close in his embrace and cherishes me like his tiny baby.
What's fascinating here is the psychological cascade that happens when you truly internalize that specific feeling.
The cascade, what do you mean by that?
Well, think about the nervous system of a tiny baby held securely by a loving parent. The baby isn't bracing for impact.
Right, they're completely relaxed. They feel entirely safe.
Exactly. The baby's nervous system is entirely regulated by the parent's presence.
And the text makes a massive leap regarding what happens when your nervous system reaches that state of ultimate regulation. The guru writes, "All beings and creatures have become kind and compassionate to me."
Yes, the external world mirrors the internal state.
Wait, let me challenge this for a second. You're implying that feeling internally protected acts like some kind of psychological force field that actually alters the behavior of the people around you.
It sounds like magical thinking, I know.
Yeah, because normally we think of compassion from others as something we have to actively negotiate or, earn. We don't just get it magically because we feel peaceful inside.
But look at the psychology of human interaction. We are highly reactive creatures. When you're trapped in that narrow path of anxiety, you project defensiveness.
Oh, so you're braced for a fight.
Right. And people subconsciously pick up on that friction and meet you with friction. You create the hostility you fear.
Ah, I see. So if you are walking into a boardroom or a tense family gathering, feeling like a vulnerable but entirely protected child, you simply aren't emitting the signals of war.
Precisely. You drop your armor because you realize you don't need it. And when you operate from a place of total unshakable security, you project a deep peace.
So the universe is essentially a mirror.
Yes. When divine grace regulates your internal state, the entire world softens and reflects that compassion back at you. You haven't manipulated anyone, you've just stopped introducing chaos into the system.
That is a beautiful way to frame it. But it brings us to a really critical pivot in the text. because if we're adopting the posture of a secure, cherished baby, well, what do babies naturally do?
They demand things.
Right, they cry, they want milk, they want toys, they want comfort. And the text suggests that what we ask for from this divine parent dictates whether we stay in that peaceful embrace or get thrown right back into the claustrophobic tunnel.
This is where the verses introduce a very stark, very uncompromising warning.
Yes. The text says, "To ask for any other than you, Lord, is the most miserable of miseries."
Which is a heavy statement to process.
Now, I have to stop and push back hard here on behalf of, anyone listening. Wait a minute. Asking for a promotion so you can pay off your mortgage or praying for your child to recover from an illness is the most miserable of miseries.
I know, it sounds incredibly harsh at first glance.
Right, because I refuse to believe that basic human ambition or caring about the material well-being of your family is a spiritual failure. Isn't it just human nature to want things to go well?
It is entirely human nature, and your reaction is the natural friction we all feel when encountering this level of spiritual rigor.
So how do we reconcile that?
Well, the guru is not demanding that you live in, absolute destitution, nor is the text saying that health or a roof over your head are evil. We have to look at the underlying mechanism.
Okay, what's the mechanism the text is describing?
The warning is about what you are anchoring your ultimate salvation to. The text equates asking for worldly things, like making them the primary goal of your soul, to feeding the hunger of the mind.
So it's about the psychological trap of desire, not the actual objects themselves.
Yes, exactly. Let's step away from the usual cliches and look at it this way. Chasing worldly desires to soothe your existential anxiety is like drinking salt water when you are dying of thirst.
Oh, wow. That's a brilliant analogy. It wets your mouth for a second. It feels like relief, but it actually accelerates your cellular dehydration.
Right, it actively makes the thirst worse.
That makes so much sense. If you ask the universe for a better job and you get it, your ego immediately recalibrates.
You need the next thing to feel safe.
Yeah.
You are drinking salt water.
Yeah.
You're living in a constant, agonizing state of lack.
And that exhaustion, that ceaseless cellular thirst of the soul is the misery.
It is the most miserable of miseries because you are choosing to drink the salt water while sitting next to a pure spring. You are asking the eternal for the impermanent.
Okay, so if asking for the promotion or, the winning lottery ticket is just chugging salt water, what is the fresh spring? What does the text say we should be asking for?
The antidote is explicit. The next verse says, "Please bless me with your name and make me content. May the hunger of my mind be satisfied."
Bless me with your name and make me content. Here's where it gets really interesting because the text doesn't describe this contentment as some kind of emotional flatline.
No, the imagery shifts dramatically here.
The guru writes, "The guru has made the woods and meadows green again." Oh, Nanak, is it any wonder that he blesses human beings as well?
It's such a striking contrast to the idea of hunger and misery.
It really is, and I want to dive into why this specific imagery matters. Because if you look at certain interpretations of Stoicism or, branches of Buddhism, the goal often sounds like detachment.
Right, achieving a state where you just don't care anymore.
Yeah, you suppress the desire, you neutralize your emotions, and you become this unshakable but ultimately sterile stone column.
Avoid a complete emptying of the self.
Right, but making the woods and meadows green again implies life. It makes me think of the psychological burnout we all face.
When you're constantly stressing over the narrow path.
Exactly. Your mind feels like cracked soil in a drought. It's brittle, it's dead. But when this text talks about contentment, it's talking about a heavy rain falling on that dead grass, and suddenly it blooms.
That is the crucial distinction in Sikh philosophy represented here. The goal is not a numb, sterile lack of desire.
The greening of the mind is flourishing.
It is vibrant, living peace. Contentment here means having your roots so deeply nourished by the divine name that you can grow and participate in the world without being destroyed by its droughts.
You aren't emptying yourself, you're finally absorbing the right nutrients.
Exactly, you're blooming.
But this brings up a massive practical problem. If you are listening to this right now, maybe you've had moments of that blooming peace.
You meditate, you pray, you take a walk in the woods.
Yeah, and you feel that green meadow in your mind, and then Monday morning hits. Your boss yells at you, your car breaks down, the world demands your attention, and the drought instantly returns.
Maintaining that blooming state when the world is chaotic seems impossible.
It really does. So how do you hold on to it?
Which is why the text doesn't leave us lingering in a peaceful meadow. It pivots sharply to the terrifying reality of trying to maintain this state.
What does it say?
The guru writes, "Such is that great giver, May I never forget him from my mind. I cannot survive without him. For an instant, for a moment, for a second.
For an instant, for a moment, for a second, that is intensely demanding.
And then it states inwardly and outwardly, he is with us. How can we hide anything from him?
It implies a requirement for constant, unbroken awareness of the divine, both inside your deepest private thoughts and outside in every single interaction.
And that level of inescapable presence connects to the next major concept in the text, the terrifying world ocean.
The terrifying world ocean. That is such an evocative phrase for the chaos of human existence.
The tragedies, the temptations, the endless noise. Navigating that ocean requires realizing you cannot compartmentalize your reality.
Meaning you can't be spiritual for an hour on Sunday and then ruthless in business on Monday.
Exactly, because the divine is witnessing the inward intent and the outward action simultaneously. There are no shadows to hide your ego in.
But let's be honest about what that actually means for a human brain. If you become hyper-aware of an immense divine presence in every single atom around you, and simultaneously witness every single fleeting, flawed thought inside your head, that isn't just peaceful.
It's a massive psychological burden.
It sounds terrifying.
It is terrifying, and the text acknowledges that terror with a highly specific, very mysterious phrase. The guru writes, "He alone endures the unendurable, whom the Lord inspires to endure it."
Endures the unendurable. If we connect this to the bigger picture, what exactly is the unendurable thing here?
It's much more profound than just surviving a bad day at work.
What is it then?
It's the absolute unvarnished weight of universal truth. Imagine suddenly having the filter removed from your consciousness. You experience the complete interconnectedness of all things, the illusion of your own separateness, and the blazing, constant presence of the infinite in every single breath.
Wow. It would be radioactive.
That is the perfect word. It is radioactive awareness. Human psychology, our default mode network, our ego, it's all built to filter that out so we can function, pay our taxes, and buy groceries.
If you're exposed to the raw, radioactive truth of the universe without a shield, it will overload your circuits. You would just snap.
Or, ironically, you might develop a massive spiritual ego.
Oh, right. You'd run around thinking you're a living god because you've seen the underlying code of the Matrix.
Exactly. The ego tries to co-opt the enlightenment, which is spiritual death. That is why it is an unendurable state. You cannot white-knuckle your way through spiritual elevation.
So you need divine assistance just to survive divine awareness without losing your mind or your humility.
Whom the Lord inspires to endure it. The text is making it explicitly clear that a true practitioner does not rely on their own psychological fortitude to hold that weight.
So the ultimate practical question has to be asked here. If I'm navigating the terrifying world ocean and I need to somehow hold this radioactive awareness without my ego blowing up, how does a normal person actually achieve this state?
The guru provides the exact mechanism, the final anchor, in the concluding line of this section.
Let's hear it.
And he alone meets the true Lord, within whose mind the guru's mantra is implanted.
The guru's mantra. Now, we need to break down how this actually functions, because a mantra isn't just a magic spell you say 3 times to make anxiety disappear.
No, we have to look at how the brain works. When the panic sets in, when the walls of that narrow path start closing, your brain is caught in a neurological loop of fear and desire.
It's the hunger of the mind spiraling out of control.
The guru's mantra, a specific sacred phrase or word given by the spiritual teacher, acts as a psychological and spiritual circuit breaker.
So it physically interrupts the default mode network.
Yes. But in the context of this scripture, it is much more than a cognitive behavioral trick. The text says the mantra is implanted in the mind.
Like a seed.
Think back to the green meadow. The mantra is the seed. When the mind is dry and cracked, remembering and vibrating that mantra calls down the rain of divine grace.
It's a tuning fork. When your frequency is frantic, grasping, and, terrified of the world ocean, the mantra forces your frequency to match the profound, regulated peace of that divine parent.
It reminds you in real time that you are the baby being held, not the isolated ego drowning in the waves.
That is exactly the mechanism. It is the anchor that allows you to endure the unendurable.
It gives your mind something pure to grip onto so you aren't swept away by the radioactive intensity of the universe or just the mundane miseries of everyday life.
What a staggering, complete roadmap guru Arjan Devji has laid out for us. Let's take a moment to look back at the sheer scale of the journey we've covered today.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We started in that claustrophobic, dark tunnel of stress, the narrow path of our own ego. And we discovered that divine grace doesn't just pull us out, It dissolves the walls entirely.
We explored how adopting the internal posture of a trusting child actually acts as a psychological shield, transforming the hostility of the external world into universal compassion.
And we also had to face the very uncomfortable truth about our own ambitions, realizing that endlessly asking the universe for temporary fixes is just drinking salt water.
It guarantees our misery.
Right. We learned that the true request isn't for things, but for the divine name, which serves as the rain that turns our burnt-out, exhausted minds into vibrant green meadows of flourishing contentment.
And finally, to navigate the terrifying world ocean and survive the radioactive weight of total spiritual awareness, we found that the Guru's mantra is the critical circuit breaker.
It is the implanted seed that allows us to endure the unendurable. So what does this all mean?
It means that the profound peace you are exhausting yourself trying to achieve isn't an acquisition, it's a surrender. And I would leave you with one final lingering thought based directly on that incredibly challenging line we discussed.
Which line was that?
Inwardly and outwardly. He is with us. How can we hide anything from him?
It's a heavy question.
It is. Consider this. If you accept that a divine presence is already intimately witnessing everything, woven into your deepest, darkest anxieties, and simultaneously present in the vastness of the world ocean, then perhaps the ultimate spiritual breakthrough isn't about finally finding God or achieving a perfect state of calm.
Maybe it is simply about giving up the exhausting, lifelong effort of trying to hide your true, vulnerable, messy self from a presence that already sees you entirely.
And still holds you exactly like a cherished tiny baby.
Stop trying to hide. Stop trying to earn your safety. Just drop the armor and let yourself be held. That is an incredibly powerful, deeply comforting thought to carry forward. If you're listening right now, we hope you can take a piece of that profound green contentment into the rest of your day, interrupt your own endless hunger, and perhaps find your narrow path widen just a little bit more. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.